chased down Snooki and talked to her on the phone. She said that he had been diagnosed with leukemia. And then he got Alzheimer's in addition to that.
At 7 o'clock, call to order here, the regular meeting of the City Council of Ranthers Pass, 600 West Cleveland Boulevard, July 11, 2016 at 7 p.m. Please arise for the invocation. Lord, we ask for your prayers for our country. We ask for prayers for our communities. We ask you to watch over our ill and the ones that have passed on. We ask you to please comfort their families. We ask you to take care of our young as they enjoy their summer vacation. We ask you just to help give a guiding hand up here to the council. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sylvia?
I just wanted to give you a brief update on the July 4th event. This was one of the larger events that we have hosted. We created an entire new parking plan, flow. Almost everybody parked on the Shrimpery parking side. We had a great number of people who didn't even bother to venture into where the kids' activities were. They stayed. They brought their barbecues, brought their drinks, and hung out. Takeaway from the event, we need a better traffic exit pattern. The mobile food vendors were hit. Again, 1,000 hot dogs disappeared in minutes. Water. I really would like to congratulate the staff again on another event. I couldn't ask for better staff to hold it. They're volunteers. Some of them maybe have to be voluntold, but by the end of the time, they are in it completely, wholeheartedly. And I couldn't be prouder. So looking forward to booking the next event. If you recall, Kiewit did not do a 4th of July event this year. And so we had a lot of what was spillover from those folks. Word has spread very fast that AP is really the place to go watch our 4th of July fireworks. That's what I have for them.
Move to item 5.1, approval of the regular minutes of the May 16, 2016 and June 6, 2016 documents.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes for those 2 days.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. This brings us to item 6, our citizen comments. The microphone is now open for citizen comments.
Hi, good evening. Quincy Cooper, 605 West Matlock Avenue. First of all, I would like to say that John from the water department, I believe he told me he was the supervisor, has been doing a great job in reading my meter every day, giving me my daily water usage consumption. Only concern I had was this past week when I didn't receive 2 or 3 of them in a row. I called the city secretary and she informed me that Miss Sylvia was out 2 previous days, which I understand that. I would just like to know if she's going to be out for whatever reason. Is there someone else who can email me my daily consumption reports?
Could be Donna, right, or anybody else? From the water department?
I like to review the consumption reports before we send them to Mr. Cooper, just make sure there's any anomalies. We are going above and beyond. John does not normally work on Saturdays and Sundays, but he is coming in Saturdays and Sundays simply to read Mr. Cooper's data logger. So if there's an issue, I'm happy to go to a weekly mailing of all 7 days. Daily is a bit cumbersome, so I will go to a weekly mailing. He'll get all 7 days. He'll just get it every week.
So you're changing from what you stated in last
No,
council
I
meeting?
said you would get a daily reading, which you
Right.
will get. You
Right.
will just get an aggregate at the end of 7 days.
At the end of 7 days. Okay, and what day would that be? So I can make sure to look for it in my email
On a Monday, that will close the following weeks.
on the Monday. Okay, sounds great. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
My name is Cynthia Vasquez. I'm at 1003 West Rhodes. I volunteer with Project Graduation, Aransas Pass Project Graduation. And if y'all recall, a few months ago, y'all generously donated funds for that night. And I wanted to present a certificate of appreciation to the city of Aransas Pass for that donation. I also wanted to let people in the audience know that Project Graduation is not just a party for seniors. It actually keeps seniors entertained and fed overnight on the night of graduation in hopes that they will stay off the street and not drink, drive, do drugs, and drive. And so we really appreciate this year's support from the city. So if I may present.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'd also like to take this minute to thank the city's police department. I know that Chief Blanchard isn't here, but they had an officer at the event to keep the students safe. And I was just amazed. A lot of these students went up to that officer to talk to him, to ask him questions. So it was really neat to see that care. And see the students building that rapport with one of their local officers. And the other thing is, the police department also provided breakfast for our graduating seniors. So it was really neat for, the kids to know how much our police department cares about them. So if I can present this to you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Cynthia. Mr. Perkins, if I may add, that officer was also feeling ill that evening and did an outstanding job by performing under the weather, so we appreciate that. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Terry Orff. I reside and own the RV park, Redfish Bay RV Resort at 300 East Beasley. And I'm here tonight because I noticed that the annexation of 18 plus acres is occurring. It's in the consent agenda today, and the language that I read in the documentation given relates it north of Beasley and east of South Arch Street. And I just want to remind the council that South Arch Street does not exist there. Years ago, we closed South Arch Street from Rhodes to Beasley. And so shouldn't the language in the documentation relate to east of the common property line that will exist between my property and this de-annexation area, which will be industrial? Second question related to that is in the fact that it's an industrial area that's abutting residential common property line. I sure hope there's an ordinance in place that allows for fencing to be required to keep that subdivision intact for dust control, sound control, and just overall control of the thing. And then finally, what really drove me here is the shape that the street Beasley is in, East Beasley, from all the truck traffic that occurs down to Redfish Terminal at this point. That street's not really made, doesn't have the infrastructure, the sub-base for that kind of truck traffic, and are we not getting ready to increase the problem? And I sure hope City Council will take that into consideration and try to do something about the shape of East Beasley that it's in now and for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Judy Miller. I was here at the last meeting. I was hoping the minutes would be reviewable for that, but they weren't yet. The street issue on 13th and Matlock, at the last meeting, I believe it was approved to go ahead with the bids, and we had quite a turnout here from Gaslight Village and several other people on Matlock that have to drive those streets. And we were left on the impression that that was going to begin almost immediately, and it's 3 weeks later, and we have not seen anything. other than the potholes getting larger. And I was kind of wondering if there was a reason for the delay, because it's kind of the biggest complaint that I have out there is those streets, which I can't do anything about. We had pretty good contingency here last meeting, and we were left under the impression that it was going to be beginning almost immediately, and nothing has started. Is there a reason for the delay? There's nothing in the agenda about it, so I didn't know if there's a reason for the delay.
We're just waiting on the contractor. That's it.
Because he had mobilized at that time from.
He had mobilized. They took the week of July 4th off. He gives his entire crews the week of July 4th off. But work is scheduled to, start any day now.
Okay, because that's what we heard 3 weeks ago. So that's all I can tell them is they keep saying any day now. The other thing, after the discussion about the water usage, I was a little frustrated with the decision that council made to just, because it seemed like there was maybe still an issue with a meter or an intermittent leak. We have water that comes in, and I individually read meters. I had 2 people last June who were gone and left their water on and had a toilet run. Both of them used over 25,000 gallons of water in a little over a week. And I actually went back and sent out an email to my park that said, if you're leaving, make sure, because this is what can happen. And I went in, I did the math. If you have a toilet that fills every 30 seconds and it's a 3-gallon toilet, or if you use 3 gallon, it's 1.5 gallons, fills in 30 seconds. If worst case scenario, if it's running straight through, you will use 130,000 gallons in a month. So if you have one that's sticking a little bit or whatever, that amount of water is it's not out of line, especially if you got something like that. I was a little disappointed that I felt like under pressure the council decided to go ahead and write that off, because when you write that off, all that means is everybody's paying that. Everybody's paying that. And because there was an issue, multiple meters, all the meters were reading that there was water being used. I was very frustrated that you made the decision to write that off. I know it's kind of like, I didn't know if I could say anything at the time, but I was just a little frustrated with that, because you can use that much water. Ask the people in my park. So, and as far as the meters that we have, you can go out and look at them yourself. You know what you're using. So, but anyhow, thank you, and thank you to the police department, just because of all the stuff that's going on. I appreciate, and we all do, appreciate your service. Thank you.
Ms. Miller, I'm going to put you in contact directly with the contractor so that he can give you a specific ETA date, and you can be in direct communication with the contractor.
Thank you. Thank you, Sylvia. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Daniel Jimenez, and I live at 140 North Arch Street here in Aransas Pass. Prior to the last meeting, city council meeting, I informed the city that the people in the Sherwood Forest area had not received a written notice that they were going to hold public hearings on the zoning of that recently annexed area. And I thought the matter was more or less resolved and that we were going to get to go before the planning and zoning with the issue to try to discuss it a little bit further. I was also under the impression that this was not going to come up until August, so me assuming, since August was a good ways away, I thought that they were going to schedule a planning and zoning meeting before they brought it up before the council. But that's supposed to come up here in a little bit. I'm going to give you a copy of state law.
Mr. Mayor, let me suggest to you, all this, as Daniel just said, all this is going to come up in a moment. I don't think citizens' comments is the place for this right now. He can certainly have his say when we get to it on the agenda.
And so, any other comments, right?
Well, I'm afraid it will take up too much time if somebody else wants to speak, so that's why I decided to bring it up now.
We've been here late, so no big deal.
Okay. Well, part of the issue is that if the matter is not finalized at the planning and zoning level, the law states that it's not supposed to come before the council. It has to be finalized, it has to be a final report. The notice was that it was going to be zoned R7B. In the discussion, they come up with the recommendation of manufactured home, which is something totally different, and it has not been ironed out. From what I read, as far as manufactured homes, it does not apply because it's a district that is allowed to an individual, not to an entire area. But I will continue.
Thank you, Dan.
My name is Ann Melton. I live at 1940 South Commercial. As far as this de-annexation for Redfish Bay Terminal, we get enough pollution out there as it is. In '95, when Tetra, some of you might not remember them, but they moved to the harbor, I lost every tree in my yard. The grass, even burned honeysuckle off the fence, and it came from that Tetra that was at Redfish Bay Terminal. In the morning, early in the morning when we go out, it smells like the sewer is overflowing. And I don't think that some of your nicer houses are out there in that area. And I really don't think that we need to put up with more pollution than what we've gotten. I hope you consider this. If you lived out there, and I've talked to some of my neighbors, and they're very against it. Mr. Ellis can tell you when I lost my trees, his father lost all the paint off the back of his Cadillac. And that's pretty stiff. Once it goes in, the city has no say of what Ken Berry puts out there, and that's who's heading this out. So I think, and the traffic with the 18-wheelers, before they closed his 2 oil tanks down because they were polluting chemicals out the bottom, they were so old. The 18-wheeler oil tankers, and also they bring that sludge from Sherwin-Williams, and what they're doing with that, I don't know. But they're hopper trucks, and we have to put up, I feel sorry for the lady across the street, because it goes right by her bedroom window. And I certainly hope that you all put yourself in our shoes and reconsider this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Masterson?
My name is Jay Masterson. I live at 120 Misty Lane, Aransas Pass. I have 3 minutes and I have 3 topics. So the first thing is that I feel very blessed to live in Aransas Pass, and I saw some beautiful things that our police department did when nobody was watching. And I go over to Port Aransas very regularly for a number of meetings. And here it was, this is 7:15 in the morning. 2 police cars were helping someone who was broken down right near our bridge. And nobody was going to be giving them kudos. Nobody was going to say anything. Everybody's going to bitch and moan about what they don't do or how they get if you have a ticket, you know, and it's, I was a 45, well, I was 50, you know, and all this stuff. The real thing was that when nobody was watching, that's when integrity matters. And I wanted to be sure that you all knew that the hiring practices that are going on in the police department are phenomenal, because these are young kids. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, at 19, 22, I don't know, they're just very young. And they work so hard, and they're very pleasant, and they're unfailingly polite. And I wanted to be sure you knew that. As we're going into the budget season, we need to know that the folks who are doing the hardest things, the people who are doing the utility work, the people who are public works, the people who are protecting us, those people need to be looked at as human beings who have really made a difference for our town and changed the perception of us, okay? That's topic one. Topic two is that perception is everything. And right now you've got some flashpoints that you don't really need, okay? I've been in this town 40 years, okay? And someone says, well, we don't have a master plan. Oh, yes, we do. Not Corpus Christi. That's the master plan. We don't want to live like Corpus Christi. We don't want to have the costs and the waste and the nonsense with how they use bond money, et cetera. It's been very clear anybody on the North Bay, with the exception of Portland, has a very serious interest in making sure that we do not follow a negative path, okay? We have growth and have maintained growth because Aransas Pass is a business-friendly city. And I want you to know I'm blessed because my husband and I have a mechanical integrity services business. We have it in Aransas Pass. We could have it anywhere in the world. We have it here because this is a place where we can thrive. And so I wanted to be sure that as you look in the future, be aware that it does matter that how you develop and redevelop and rethink your subdivisions or your replats. I don't know anything about the specific issues that I saw on the agenda tonight, but I can tell you some general things. One is that whatever the state of Texas does is a whole heck of a lot better than anybody in any other state does. That I've lived in 6 states, I can tell you that. The thing is that they are, if their law regarding the minimum size of a lot was written by the Texas Municipal League, I'm sorry, it has some suspect nature to it, okay? The second thing is it's just like when you look at your banking regulations, if Citibank is the one that's writing the regulations, nobody trusts it, okay? Same thing with Texas Municipal League. All due respect to the members, okay? I have some concerns that when you look at replatting or redevelopment, you think about what happened in the Highland subdivision. I've been there for 20 years. That subdivision was developed, redeveloped, replatted, reset 5 times before I got there, okay? They started this mother in the 60s, and we have never had gotten our sewage, our sewer treatment, our sewer lines, our water lines have never been upgraded. We had last year 3 sinkholes, okay? Now I just want you to think about that when you look at using a criteria, a measure of effectiveness that says we're going to look at minimum lot size. Any developer, anyone, I don't care who it is, needs to have an understanding that if there's an impact on the sewer system and the water system, it's a no-go unless you pay for the upgrade. Right now, I can't get a gas line. The gas lines are sitting right in my yard. I can't get gas at my house. You know why? They want to charge me $5,000 to hook it up. Why is it? Why is it that someone can ask for a replat or do a redevelopment and not have to pay for a sewer and water system upgrade to the level of what the usage is going to be? And I don't care whether or not you're doing a beautiful RV park or you're doing houses. When you reduce that lot size, you have a problem, okay? And lot sizes need to be looked at as being something that we don't want to be living in rat warrens like they do in Washington, D.C., charging $270 a square foot, and it's still a rat warren, okay? I don't live there, and I was there for 20 years, okay? I came to Aransas Pass to live in the open spaces, and I thank you for preserving that, okay? Item number 3 is that the utility system, somebody's being screwed, okay? And I'm just sorry that the billing system, there's something fundamentally wrong, okay? Now, please understand, I know everybody did it with the best of intentions, but in the 80s, when I was a productivity specialist for 40 governments, we threw out the system you just installed. Hear that? Hear what I just said. We threw it out because it was wasteful. My husband has to deal with inspections of very, very expensive equipment. We have their guns. The people who work with him use a little gun, a data collector, just like we have, a data logger. And guess what? They expect to have the management reports the next day, not a month and a half later. If I have my water meter read on the 8th of a month. I expect to see the bill by the 15th and that you have your money on the 17th, taken right out of my checking account. I want it automated, and I want to be able to see it on my email. I do not need to have any paper at all. I'm willing, very willing, to have you be able to get my money within 9 days. And I really think that that measure of effectiveness should be looked at in conjunction with whatever savings you think you're incurring with this antiquated system. Okay? Thank you very much. I really, really love this town, and I think that all the things that the new administration has been trying to do are very positive, and that's why I think that somebody has misled you. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. Paula Stone, 201 West Roads, and I just want to come and say thank you to Alan Lawrence and also the council, because under the consent agenda you have the final reading of the library ordinance, and I really appreciate that Mr. Lawrence tracked me down so we could have a nice dialogue about some meaning and the proper terminology, and I appreciate that, and I think that we need to tell people thank you when things are done correctly. I appreciate it. I fully expect to leave in about 5 minutes when you pass that consent agenda. So thank you very much. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Steve Hall, owner of Hall's Paint Body Muffler and Poe Inc. also next door. I just want to ask a few questions, that's all. I have a building that was brought in beside me. It's beautiful. Y'all probably should all go check it out. I mean, I just want to know what's going to come of this building. It's kind of an eyesore. I've got just about every customer that pulls up now asks me what that is, what it's going to be, is it anything? It's almost embarrassing to have it next door to me, and it's so close. Anyway, it blocks my shop. What they're doing now is even worse. I mean, I helped these people out when they were first starting their business because they told me what a great thing it was going to be. They were going to build this big, nice, huge building with a pool in the middle of it and a place to train people. It's going to be this great, just a nice, it's going to make my building look terrible. It's going to be a nice building. So I let them use my water, my electricity, anything I can do to help them out. And, well, you can see what's next door to me right now. It's not good. Anyway, they're also blocking, if you ever notice, just drive by there and try to see my shop now. They're putting all they can next to the road to block my view of traffic coming my way, which I think, it's great. It's a good thing that I've been there, enough years that people know me. And I appreciate all the people I know here and everybody that does what they do for me and, my customers. And I know a lot of y'all are, and I appreciate, y'all's business. But it's in a windstorm thing, I've been there long enough. I've been there long enough that I've actually about paid for my place. And, everybody, I think, thinks this. One day it's a metal building. A few things may fly off. I'll go get them. I'm not going to carry all this. I'm not going to spend all this money on windstorm every year. But I have to now because what they've got, if just go look what they've got next to me. All this stuff it's going to blow into my building. I've got to protect myself now. They've got a boat that I...
What is your address?
2186 Highway 35 bypass. And also 2200 Highway 35 bypass. And what I think is there's even a boat. There's a boat sitting out there on the trailer that I have heard was salvaged, off the bottom of the harbor or whatever. The place they've got now is probably, I know when we were annexed, it was supposed to be 10 years or so. That's all you can get in there, something that may be 10 years old. And that's good. I try to abide. I don't try. I abide by the rules. Everything I build is windstorm approved. I mean, from the cement to the building to everything I've got. And we do this because in the state of Texas, you have to do this. If you're going to get a loan to buy something, if you're going to buy my property and you need a loan, it's going to have to be, or you can't. They're not going to give it to you, which is all good. But I've got to protect myself now because of this so-called, I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say this. It looks like everybody comes up, it looks like a junkyard next to me. It's terrible. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I want to build the wall. I'm going to have to build something. Really and truly, I'm going to have to build something. The values of my property. What would you do if you owned my property and somebody wanted? I have people looking into my stuff at one time. Now there's no way. I've even had the guy that was looking that was interested tell me I'm no longer interested.
Mr.
Would
Hall,
you?
this is the Dutton Casey property?
Yes, yes, ma'am. And also, I mean, if you ever look where they put this building, it's so close to my property. It's just unbelievable. It's terrible. But anyway, and this doesn't really bother me. I mean, I should have one. But they have 3 travel trailers in the back. And I was told by San Patricio County, by Maddie, the one that, gives out your little permit, I couldn't have one. She said if I had one, if it was hooked to sewage or water, anything, they would find me and pull it out of there. Okay, they've got 3. I just want one. I'll put it between my tattoo parlor and my business and build a big fence and you'll never see it. But, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to do that to you or anybody else. I'm not that way. But this rezoning thing, I hope it does something for that. But really and truly, the travel trailers don't bother me. But that house that they put in there, or whatever you want to call it, I guarantee you, it was given to them from someone in Corpus. They paid to have it moved over there. And I'll guarantee you it's probably about 80 years old. And and I told the guy before he put it where he put it, I said, man, just do me a favor. And I said, there's going to be a problem if you do this, just between me and you. But I said, if you'll put it either even with my shop, if you drive that road, you look, you see the businesses, you can see everybody's business as you come by. Notice mine. Drive it tomorrow and notice my business. You cannot even see my business anymore. People pass me and come around the block and come back. But they put everything out there to do that, including their ugly piece of junk thing they put there is like 10 feet in front of my shop. And when they were pulling it in, I asked him politely to at least make it even with my shop or put it behind it. No, they could care less. They don't care. And we don't even need to go with what they were doing before they put a septic tank in, because that pipe that came from that trailer, that was behind their trailer, it was drawn into the brush behind my shop, where they were, doing their thing. And I told them to move that. If they didn't, I was, and I came over and talked to the city secretary about this, because I didn't want that there. And some other people. Okay. Where are we at? And there's also behind that shop, behind what they've moved in there, if you want to call it a shop, there's a swimming pool that they put in about 10 years ago. Well, they actually lowered my taxes in San Patricio County because of all this crap that's next door to me. 40% they lowered it. I mean, they said, sorry, we'll do this for you. They should have lowered my brother's, which is my brother owns where Core is now. He owns that property. They should have lowered his more, but they didn't. But it's really affected me more than him, the way it's set up. But anyway, that's bad. I mean, it's not. There's also you need to go. Everybody here. You have my permission to go behind my shop, walk through there. I don't care whether you go through the shop, side of the shop, what you do. Look behind the shop. It is disgusting. I've got pictures on my phone I'd love to show you. But anyway, there is a swimming pool out there with an old hot tub thrown in the middle of it and all kinds of other crap and mosquitoes. It's mosquito infested. And there's another big hole behind that. And I already told you about the boat and everything else, the trailers, but it's just disgusting, man. And, I mean, there's everything. Even I wrote it down because I'd forget half of this. There's broken toilets. There's just everything behind there. It's just terrible. But as far as the resale of my shop, just put yourself in my shoes. I bought this 14 years ago. I'm not a rich man. I'm just a guy trying to make a living. And I thought, I'd buy this. I was one of the first people out there. And I thought I'd try to buy this and, make something of it. But you know what? I'm going to end up with nothing because of these so-called whatever you want people next door. I don't want to say names, but I'm going to wind up with nothing. My place is going to be worth nothing. I wish I would have listened to Mr. Charlie Marshall. He told me to buy the whole place when it was all vacant, and I told him I don't need it. But the man told me, and he's a very smart man. I wish I would have listened to him. But thank y'all for listening to me.
Thanks, Saul.
Mr. Hall, if you'll meet with Dale, who's our building official, and we'll have some discussion about code enforcement and other. Dale is our building official.
Good afternoon. My name is Oscar Medina. I'm here as a voice, if you will, for the residents on Ebert Street. I know here the past couple months we've passed a bond for 19 new roads to be fixed throughout Aransas Pass, and I just want to make sure that Ebert stays in the forefront. I know it has a lot of work to do on a very small street. Very few residents that live on that street, but it has plenty of potential for building new homes. And it's basically what I'm here for is making sure that, hey, you know what, it's a small street, but it does have a lot of work that needs to be done, and I just want to make sure that it does stay on the forefront, not just push, on the back burner. So, thank you.
Do you know, Sylvia, anything about?
You're going to be discussing it at your council retreat, but we did just close the survey today.
Thank you, Mr. Medina.
This is the rank in order of importance. The survey was open for 2.5 months. Ebert ranked at the bottom of the survey, and discussion with Mr. Medina is probably because very few people live on Ebert. Highland, Porpoise, Johnson, 13th, all made sort of the top 5. But this is going to be a topic of discussion at your council retreat as we begin the CIP planning prior to the budget.
Mr. Wellman.
My name is Jerry Wellman, 1869 South Saunders. I'm here on the same matters that I've been here for 10 years for. And most of them are general comments. If you live in the city, you ought to have a paved street. If you live in the city, you should not have a septic tank. You should have city services and city water and city sewer. And I challenge the council to ask themselves every 3 or 4 months, what have I done to get citizens into the city where they have a paved street, they have city water, city sewer, city services, city police department, and that's what cities do. And when we spend money on other stuff, we need to take care of the basics. And that doesn't matter if you have a small street with only a few residents, you should have a paved street if you live in the city. The other issue is drainage. I know it's hot now and there's everything is dry. We have residents in this city that water stands in their front yard more than 24 hours after a rain, and that shouldn't happen in the city. The drainage should be there so it drains. A plan and this or that and bacon fat doesn't get the water off. What we need to do is get the water off, and I challenge the city to look at that and see what we're going to do about it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else who'd like to make a comment?
Mayor, we've got a couple of items under citizens' comments that make their way on to the agenda. One of them is I would like to introduce a brand new police officer on the force. I will let Assistant Chief Perkins make the announcement.
This is Jeremy Gates. He's fresh out of the academy. He's one of the new ones that you were talking about. We like to mold them. We like to make them, something that would fit in with our community. He went through 17 weeks at Del Mar College in the police academy. He's now going through an 18-week FTO program, a field training officer program. Upon completion of that, he'll go on probation, and hopefully he'll pass the muster and he'll become one of our finest. He comes from a law enforcement family. His wife is a detective in Rockport. His mother-in-law retired from the Tyler Police Department. His father-in-law also retired. He's also the instructor at Del Mar College for the Law Enforcement Academy. So I don't want to hold him here too long. He's on duty, so I'm going to let him get out of here. But this is Jeremy Gates.
Thank you for your service, Jeremy. A couple of other items. We did receive a thank you letter from the Aransas Pass School District for the Torch Awards, assistance during the Torch Awards. We did get news of our new bond rating increase to AA-, which is 2 increases since I've been here. So yay, good, sound fiscal management. Council is going to have a discussion on the retreat that I'm hoping will happen next Saturday. It is on the agenda. We'll have an open vote on that. Just want you to have that in the back of your mind. On July 19th, we're going to be hosting a regional coalition on domestic violence. You have the handouts in front of you. We have commitments from all of the surrounding mayors, all of the surrounding police chiefs, the Texas Coalition on Family Violence out of Austin, the Women's Shelter. What we have learned throughout this process is there is a very disjointed approach in how we approach and assist. The women's shelter apparently has been asking for a presence in San Patricio County. They've not received a welcome invitation, let's put it that way. We have extended a welcome invitation, and we'll be looking for a room for them where they can provide services out of Aransas Pass. And really, it is to start the dialogue. We have heard on the news an instance of domestic violence every week for the past 2 months. The statistics show it's a silent epidemic. So with the help of the police departments, our entire regional police department and our entire regional elected officials, and even some Austin officials, will be able to enact some change and make our entire region a safe community, not just one city within the organization. So that is July 19th. Watch your calendars. That's what I have on that.
I won't be able to make that one, so just to let you know.
What date does that fall on?
Tuesday. Next Tuesday.
8:30 to 1.
This brings us to item 7, our consent agenda. All the following items of the consent agenda considered to be routine by the city council will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests. If a discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Item 7.1.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 7.2 will be ordinance number 2016-4154. This annexing 18.52 acres of land from the city of Aransas Pass, Texas, as described to the attached Exhibit A, amended the industrial district agreement by and between the city of Redfish Bay Terminal Incorporated by adding that this annex 18.52 acres to such industrial district agreement and providing an effective date.
I believe there was a motion made to approve the
To take care
consent
of that.
agenda, and both of these items are on the consent agenda, so.
Yes. All right, thank you. This will bring us to, you're up, Alan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, item 8.1 is a public hearing on a text amendment to section 15, non-conforming uses, by adding a time frame for discontinued non-conforming uses. Mr. Saldana? I'd point out to the council that Planning and Zoning has previously considered this item and has unanimously approved it and recommended your approval.
Mayor, Council, the item you have before you is an amendment that has been around since about November of 2015. It was tabled by the council, then it was brought back, and then in March of this year, the council had some concerns about the nonconformity, listened to the public, made some changes, and remanded it back to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission on May the 9th reviewed the proposed amendments and then again tabled it to the June 13th, at which time they reviewed the amendments and recommended unanimously for this amendment to change or to pass. The nonconformance, you will see, it will allow the nonconforming use of up to 12 months. After 12 months, then the nonconformity exists if it's for discontinued use. The other is, which was a concern, somebody that's gone for 12 months, 13 months because of a job related, but their facility is still good and it meets building code, then they could continue using that non-conforming structure. So that was also added. And then it made detailed about what a non-conforming, how much before repairs you could do before you could lose your non-conformity, which is your 50%. And as I stated, on the last section of the proposed amendment, it says that if a owner-occupied manufactured home can be replaced by the owner-occupied residence, and it shows that it's 10-year. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered changing that to a 5-year. Then after further discussion, they decided to recommend a 7-year, not the 10 years that that I show here on the proposed ordinance. So their recommendation is for approval of the amendments and that the last section be changed from 10 years to 7 years. Any questions?
Any questions of the council?
No, sir.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone present who is in opposition to the proposed amendment? I'm sorry?
He said he couldn't hear it.
Well, are you opposed to what we're talking about, the non-conforming use changes?
I don't know what that is.
Okay. Is there anyone else who's opposed? If not, then I'll declare the public hearing closed.
I'd like to speak in favor.
Well, okay, go ahead.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Saldana and the Planning and Zoning and Sylvia, our city manager, because we did do some work on this ordinance. I was very displeased when it originally came out because the language was considerably, well, I'll just describe it as harsh as far as non-conforming use. The change actually allows for an inspection, or calls for an inspection, instead of an immediate demolition or removal of a structure that's not conforming, which is a major difference. There's still some language that I don't necessarily agree with, but to me, it's an acceptable change. It's an acceptable ordinance. And I especially like the fact that people that live in a mobile home will not be stuck in what they're living in, because the ordinance will allow them to actually upgrade their manufactured home to a newer manufactured home. The only thing is that I think a 10-year-old manufactured home is still in good enough condition that it should pass whatever ordinance or requirements the city might have. But as I said, I would like to thank the city staff and the council, because it was the council that allowed us the opportunity to hold a discussion. And I am in favor of the ordinance as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And with that, I'll declare the public hearing closed.
All right, thank you, Alan. This brings us to item 8.2, consider an act on ordinance to amend section 15, non-conforming uses by adding a time frame for discontinued and non-conforming uses, providing for repeater clause and effective date. Do I hear a motion for approval?
Mayor and council, your motion,
I table it.
if the council so desires, no, the planning commission recommendation unanimous was a 7-year.
7 years.
So, section 150, any reference to 10-year-old mobile homes needs to be amended to say 7. Yes, sir. If the council so desires.
Before we go, I don't know. I know the gentleman didn't quite hear or understand. Do you mind explaining before we make the vote so that he can?
Sure. The issue at hand was as to whether people who live in non-conforming structures, specifically manufactured homes, would be able to replace those mobile homes if something happened to the mobile home. The way the ordinance was written, there were timeframes and rigid stipulations. Working through the Planning Commission and the council, the stipulations have been as long as it is an owner-occupied mobile home, it may be replaced. And if a longer than 10-year period or a longer period than was prior approved, as long as we can do an inspection and it is still a safe and habitable structure, the use can continue. So it adds a safeguard and not just close the door to any possibility of an additional use of that mobile home or manufactured home.
We good?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I just want to make sure. he
No, that's fine.
understood.
Thank you, Vicki. Do I hear a motion for approval for item 8.2 with the change from 10 to 7 years?
Where are we at here? Well, I'll make a motion that we approve to amend the ordinance on section 15, non-conforming use, by adding a time frame for discontinued non-conforming, reflecting the change from 10 years to 7 years upon recommendation of the planning and zoning. So I make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Lawrence?
Thank you, Mayor. The next item is a public hearing, which I declare open, on a text amendment to Section 3, subsection 100, to rename the R7B district to single-family dwelling district, 7,000 square foot, and to Section 10, subsection 200, schedule of uses, by removing manufactured home as a use subject to a conditional use in the R7B district. Mr. Saldana?
Mayor and Council, this proposed text amendment is something that was created some confusion. Back in 2014, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended and the City Council approved an amendment to remove manufactured homes from all residential districts. However, when the ordinance was approved and changed, it removed the manufactured homes from all zoning districts except the R7B. So there was some concern that that was the intent of not only the Planning Commission but the City Council. So the Planning and Zoning Commission requested that staff prepare an amendment to remove manufactured homes as a conditional use permit from the R7B district. The Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended the removal of the manufactured home from the R7B, and if that's the case, then the nomenclature of the R7B would also have to be amended to remove the clause that says single-family dwelling and manufactured home district. So that's the reason for those two changes, because it changes the nomenclature of the R7B and it removes it from the use chart.
Any questions of the council?
Thank you.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
So an R7A is just for single-family use, correct?
Correct.
And an R7B was for single-family use and mobile homes, correct?
Subject to a conditional use permit.
Subject to a conditional use permit.
Okay.
So they had to go before approval for planning and zoning and also council to get a conditional use permit for a manufactured home.
Okay.
Is there anyone, excuse me, is there anyone in the audience who is opposed to this amendment? Yes, sir, Daniel.
My name is Daniel Jimenez. I live at 140 North Arch Street. The city proposed to zone an area in the Sherwood Forest area R7B. That offer was made with the inclusion of the definition as it stands currently. So if you vote on this now, you will be changing the recommendation. So I suggest that this should be tabled until the actual discussion on what is going to be applied in the Sherwood Forest area, R7B or manufactured housing. I think you're a little bit premature in voting on this right now, because that's the offer on the table that we're going to discuss here in a little bit. Whether we're going to have R7B, which is basically what exists out there, is a mixed use. That's what currently exists now. And manufactured home, which in my opinion doesn't apply at all. But that's for further discussion. But as I say, I really think this needs to be tabled till after that discussion.
In the
Thank you.
context of the discussion of R7B versus Mobile Home Planning Commission did take that into account. So when you look forward into your packets and you see the zoning proposal for Sherwood Forest, that's why the proposed recommendation is MH district and not R7B.
So if it's MH,
Correct. It is a future action, but it's all been taken into context. Mr. Jimenez is right. If you vote R7B, if you vote on the changes in R7B and remove the mobile home district, and then later on in Sherwood Forest, vote against Planning Commission's recommendation, which was a unanimous decision, so it would require 4 of you to vote against the Sherwood Forest recommendation to MH, then yes, mobile homes would be removed. So 6 one way, half a dozen the other. It is the same intent to allow mobile homes within the Sherwood Forest area, owner occupied, with a specific zoning classification.
So can you have residential in a mobile home district?
It is a residential district. It's a structure definition.
Okay.
If you look at your chart that staff has provided, there's MH. Correct. That was the discussion. That was the discussion in the prior. Yes, correct.
That's correct.
And in the prior action, council made that grandfathering, that non-conforming use, even more lenient.
If we're going to have the discussion now, houses are not allowed in the mobile home district. In 7B there are. They are not in a mobile home district or subdivision or mobile home park. Houses are not allowed. There are houses in the Sherwood Forest area. Currently, you have a manufactured home subdivision in the Sherwood Forest area that allows mixed use. The R7B, under its original definition, allowed for mixed use. The manufactured home district does not.
He's correct, but you just approved a non-conforming use that says what's there gets to stay there, whether it's a manufactured home or a structure. So yes, staff is working on cleaning up the ordinance. Currently under the item, there is no single-family home per se. There isn't a dot there. That's been in discussion. Planning Commission will see it in the very near future. You just approved a non-conforming, which means we cannot evict or can't force people out. We can't, not allow them to live there. It is it's an incremental change. This is just one step to get there.
Non-conforming house under the MH will not be able to put another house in there. The ordinance is to put a manufactured home. The one you just approved does not talk about a house.
It's non-conforming structure. If you go back to the ordinance, it is non-conforming structure.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Carol Salinas, 858 South 11th Street, Aransas Pass. In May 2014, the City Council acted on this item. The item was to remove and this was at the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, to remove manufactured home use from all zoning districts with the exception being manufactured home districts, and propose changes to the general business zoning. Councilmember Ellis made a motion to approve a change to remove manufactured home use as the primary use from all zoning districts, with the exception being manufactured home housing districts. The motion carried unanimously. When the ordinance 214-4066 was actually presented for signature to Mayor Chapa, it was mistakenly, for some reason, written up that they would remove manufactured home use from the primary use from all zoning districts within the city, with the exception of manufactured housing districts by way of a conditional use permit. The recommendation by Planning and Zoning was to remove manufactured homes from R7B, from all districts except the mobile home district. The City Council reviewed that, discussed it, voted on it to remove it. Somehow or other, it got left in the R7B when the actual ordinance was presented for signature, not during discussion or during action. So right now, really, if you get down to it, you're just cleaning up what should have been done in May 2014. As Ms. Carrillo said, the other issue of Sherwood Forest has been
is coming up for discussion, following lengthy discussion by planning, zoning, and residents of that area, trying to work everything out so that as many people as possible would be positively impacted. You can't always make everybody happy. But basically, this removing manufactured homes from R7B is something that was acted on in May 2014. I have it here. For some reason, it just got typed into the ordinance incorrectly.
Anyone else who would like to speak either in favor or against the proposition?
None of that changes the fact that the city offered under its current definition R7B to the people in the Sherwood Forest area. That's what's being offered, the use of their mobile homes. And my argument is that we need an R7B district out there under its original definition, allowing for mixed use, and that way everybody out there is the same as anywhere in the city. Nobody out there will fall under a non-conforming use.
The recommendations to Planning Commission from staff are just that, recommendations. Planning Commission, just like the council, is able to amend staff's recommendation. They're able to make modifications to what was presented. So, for example, if staff presented an R7B and the Planning Commission felt that was too stringent and wanted to offer a mobile home district, Planning Commission so has that authority. They are the recommending body to City Council, not staff. That's exactly what has happened in the next item you're going to see.
The only thing I'm asking right now is if you wait till after the actual discussion.
Any questions by the council or other comments? If not, then I declare this public hearing closed.
What is the favor of the council on item 8.4?
I make a motion we approve item 8.4.
Second the motion.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Next is item 8, Roman 5, public hearing on a text amendment to Section 4, Section 112, LI Light Industrial, to amend the purpose of the zoning district. You might as well just stay up there.
That's what I just said, exactly, verbatim. Just stay up there.
Mayor, Council, the text amendment you have before you is to amend the definition of the purpose of the LI Light Industrial District, because right now the Light Industrial District specifically states that that all work will be done inside a building. We all know that there's welding shops that you don't do that. Most of the time you don't do that on the inside a structure. Most of it is done outside. There's some work on some major equipment or heavy trucks that's practically done outside. So staff has recommended changes to the purpose of the Allied District, where it would allow the work to be performed outside.
Any questions concerning this change? Is there anyone present who is opposed to this particular amendment? Seeing none, if there are no other questions from the council, this public hearing is closed.
What's the favor of council of 8.6?
Make a motion we approve item 8.6.
I second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Item 8.7 is a public hearing on zoning case number 0516-01, a request by the city for a change of zoning from AG Agricultural District to R7B Single Family Dwelling District on Tract 1, GB General District on Tract 2, and Light Industrial District on Tract 3. The area is generally located north of Marshall Street and State Highway 35 bypass, west of North Avenue A and south of Robert Lane. You're on again.
Mayor and Council, what you have before you is the change of zoning for the newly annexed area in Sherwood Forest. You can see on track 1, the original notice was for R7B. That's what was originally sent out during the public hearings and the discussion with Planning Commission. There was two meetings held on this rezoning, and it's when the Planning Commission unanimously recommended that track 1 not be rezoned to R7B, but be rezoned to manufactured homes. There was a lot of discussion on the existing on-site built homes, and at that time, the Plan Zoning Commission directed staff to amend the MH district to allow on-site built homes or modular homes to be allowed in the MH district. So it'd be like the R7B currently that allows mobile homes. It'll be just reversed, where the manufactured home district will now allow single-family homes to be allowed constructed. The track 2 is the general business district. Most of that area is currently developed with some kind of commercial establishment. This also includes the butter churn and the Autoplex, AP, or Allen Samuels. Those were never rezoned. They're still zoned agriculture, but they got their business to go in there. I don't know how, but they did. The other track 3 is the LI that's on the north end of Sherwood Forest, which is the Mr. Harrison's welding shop, and that's why we made the change to LI, so that way Mr. Harrison would be able to continue his operation, his business, and be able to work outside. Again, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended a mobile home district on track 1, general business district on track 2, and light industrial on track 3. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, sir.
No questions? Is there anyone in the audience who is opposed to this proposition? Well, go ahead.
My name is Daniel Jimenez, just for the record. I'm going to pass out this, what I mentioned earlier, which is a state law that requires a final report from the planning and zoning prior to council actually taking action on a recommendation. I'm going to read you part of the last page. I'm going to hand these out first. First of all of the planning and zoning meetings require written notice. And we had 2 planning and zoning meetings where no written notice was mailed out, which was, I believe, the May 9th and July? June 13th. We did not receive any written notice. We received written notice of today's hearing, but not of the planning and zoning. State law requires written notice. That's what's outlined under C. Under C of this particular law, which pertains to zoning and zoning boards, before the 10th day before the hearing date, written notice of each public hearing before the zoning commission on a proposed change in zoning classification shall be sent out to each owner. That was not done. B, the zoning commission shall make a preliminary report and hold public hearings on that report before submitting a final report to the governing body. The governing body may not hold a public hearing until it receives the final report of the zoning commission unless the governing body by ordinance provides that a public hearing is to be held. That was not done either. Now, if we had gotten the R7B designation, it wouldn't be a problem and everybody would be happy. The other issue is that we are being offered manufactured home district, and the manufactured home district was discussed, but the changes were never discussed before the planning and zoning. How that's going to be made applicable to individual property owners. The manufactured home district is for basically a developer or one person who owns more than 5 acres, or at least 5 acres. Majority of the people out there do not own 5 acres. There has not been any discussion for the planning and zoning of how that's going to be implemented. And that's why I say there is not a final report, because that has not been done. Not only that, but when the message was sent out, or the notice was sent out, both mailed out and sent out, there was no definition of what the zoning designations were. I'm going to hand this out. Don't have to read all of it, just to highlight. What's the second episode?
Can I get a copy? I've not seen it, so.
I have extra, but they're not highlighted. As a matter of fact, the one that I have isn't highlighted, so I'm going to have to guess what I highlighted. But anyway, for the most part, there are many regulations regards to a manufactured home subdivision. The actual district has to be done through permit, and the permit is issued to one individual owner or developer. The language in the code basically states that it has to be a developer. It has to be through permit, through a permitted use. The very back part of the very last page, it actually states that. Permit required. Any person seeking to alter or expand a mobile home park or subdivision, a recreational park or subdivision, or construct a new park or subdivision under the provision hereof shall obtain a written permit from the city building inspector. That is a permitted district. It's not an applied district. Nowhere in our city, to my knowledge, do we have a manufactured home district that is not given out to other than an individual property owner. And that property owner is required to own more than 5 acres. I don't own 5 acres out in the Sherwood Forest area. The majority of those properties that have already been subdivided are not 5 acres. How is that going to be applied? That was not discussed. RVs are allowed in a manufactured home subdivision as a single-family dwelling. That discussion has come up that city was not going to allow that at all. But the discussion at the planning and zoning meeting, that didn't happen. There are parking requirements. There are less, as I said, I didn't mark mine, so I'm going off of memory. The lot requirements are a lot smaller. You can have a mobile home as close to 3 foot from the boundary line. How is it going to work? How is that going to be done? Now, if I had 5 acres, that would be great, because then I would put as many mobile homes in there as possible, because that's part of my business. But I can't do that. No one can. It's not applicable. Doesn't apply. The R7B district, under its original reading, allowed for mixed use, allowed for houses, manufactured homes, and originally RVs. I'm not recommending RVs. I'm going to hand these out.
Well, Mr. Jimenez hands out his pieces of paper. I'd like to address probably 4 of his 5 topics. 1, he claims no notice was sent for the June meeting. We noticed for the May meeting, the item was tabled. There is no need to renotice that state statute. Number 2, he calls for a final report. That is your agenda memo. You never received one before. I don't know if he's ever had a complaint about planning and zoning action before. You never received a final report from planning and zoning as you're receiving today. That is your report. 3, he talks about developer equals owner. This council has made numerous discussions and contracts with individual owners who are also developers. That definition is synonymous with one another. You can be a developer and an owner and not develop an entire subdivision, but simply develop the plot of land. 3, while his issues are valid on some of the mobile home issues, that's what the non-conforming use hopes to take care of. It is protecting people's uses and grandfathered uses. The intent, whatever Mr. Jimenez intends to do with his bait and switch, that'll happen inevitably after this meeting, is to protect the property owners who own within Sherwood Forest. Staff and the Planning Commission have bent over backwards, amending the definition for light industrial to make sure that business owner can stay there, amending the definitions and the uses within the general business to make sure those businesses can stay there, amending the uses within the
And
R7B.
we see the change in the definition because that was never discussed.
The R7B, this community, the Planning Commission is the voice of a community on what are tolerable uses. This community way back when said manufactured homes in a single family district drive down the value. By Mr. Jimenez's own admission, manufactured homes do not have the longevity of a stick-built home. They just do not.
That is not the subject of matter, and I have the floor. May I reclaim
the community made the decision to remove the manufactured homes from the R7B back in 2014. So I think what is before you is an issue of compromise between not just the Planning Commission, but also citywide, because these ramifications and changes do not just affect Sherwood Forest, they are changes to the zoning ordinance.
Since you're not going to give me back the floor, can you answer me a
blanket.
question? How am I, someone like me, or some of these people sitting in here, how are they supposed to be able to apply that to their property if they don't own 5 acres?
I'm sorry?
This has not been discussed. That's what I'm telling you. How can you put forth a final plan if this has not been discussed? The changes, in order to make this applicable, have not been discussed.
Mr. Jimenez, all of the property owners that are out there, really, in terms of what is allowed use, are covered under the non-conforming use that we just went through. You're talking about future uses and future subdivisions, which will have to go through the normal process. You are absolutely right. The way the manufactured home and the subdivision is set out right now, there are multiple homes on one lot. Would they meet any? Would they meet any criteria in
what I'm saying.
any other
It cannot
city?
be applied. It will not apply. It does not apply to that area.
Correct, which is
The
why the
R7B
non-conforming
district
makes
would
the
apply.
protections. Non-conforming makes the protections for which you're fighting for, as long as
That's
the
a
home
different issue.
is protected.
It still makes everything out there non-conforming. They won't have the freedoms that everybody has here in town. I cannot go and spend $10,000 on my mobile home if it's not worth at least $20,000, and they will be stuck in that same situation.
There are properties out there that are more than 5 acres. Your property may not be 5 acres, Mr. Menace, but there are
very few
lot
properties out there
stipulations of
that are-
4,500.
This is what I'm trying to explain.
Not 5 acres.
This should not be brought before the council at this time because they have not put forth a final report. This should have to go back to the council, to the planning and zoning, and they should send legal notice like they're supposed to, so that everybody will have the proper venue to speak their mind. The only thing is that you have eliminated the use of the mobile home in the R7B district, which you have offered. That's why I recommended that you table it till after the discussion.
Mr. Saldana, you want to respond to some of this?
On the mobile home districts, this would be considered a manufactured home subdivision, because each owner would own its own lot, just like you would in a manufactured home subdivision. If somebody wanted to do multiple manufactured homes on a single lot, then they would have to comply with the requirements of a manufactured home park.
They would have to own 5 acres.
If they
Very few
want
people own 5
to
acres.
do a manufactured park.
Subdivision,
Right
the
now,
same-
by rezoning it to manufactured home district, it automatically becomes a manufactured home subdivision, because each tract of land is owned by somebody who has a manufactured
The
home. on it.
requirements of a manufactured home subdivision are the exact same as a manufactured home park. There is
5
no
acres.
difference.
There's 5 acres. This entire tract of the
So it does not
manufactured
apply.
home
That's what I
is
keep
greater
explaining to
than
you.
5 acres.
It does not apply to that area.
The area is greater.
The city annexed they actually annexed 3 mobile home subdivisions, pre-existing. Multiple use subdivisions, which in our city, originally we don't, technically we don't have it now, but we had an R7B district under its original definition that allowed what it was that the city annexed. But manufactured home subdivision does not fit.
I think what Mr. Jimenez is confused on, track 1, it's in its entirety, no different from Oak Landing, no different from Highlands. That is a subdivision. That is more than 5 acres. Yes, if somebody even within Oak Landing, Oak Harbor, Iron Gate, or if somebody within the subdivision wants to subdivide into more lots and put more than one house on a lot, yes, they're going to have to go through the normal process and the normal stipulation. Track 1 in its entirety is a subdivision. That is no different from the plats that you're going to see, in the next item. Each individual parcel is not considered a park or a subdivision. It is tract 1 in its entirety.
This is something that, what is being proposed is something that has never been done in the city of Aransas Pass. The city has never applied a manufactured home district to an area. It's always been issued under a permit. Every district that we have in our city, Portobello, Gaslight Village, they were all issued to a permit. It's a permit-issued district. It's not an applied district.
But did I understand you correctly say a while ago that this area was already a manufactured home subdivision?
Yes.
Well,
it's a manufactured home subdivision, but it's mixed use. The R7B, it fits the R7B definition. It does not fit the manufactured home subdivision. Each individual person on R7B can do basically whatever anybody else in town can do. Make upgrades, replace their mobile home with a house. Houses are not allowed in a manufactured home subdivision. They can upgrade to a house, they can upgrade to a newer mobile home, same as anybody else in town. But if you zone it as a manufactured home subdivision, then everybody falls into a non-conforming use. Thank you for your time.
yes, sir, thank you.
I suggest that you table this.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? Yes, sir, Jerry?
I go back to my earlier comment. Is water and sewer provided by the city here? If not, the resident, the owner, whoever needs to pay for it. And don't issue any more individual sewer systems in that area.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yes, ma'am?
name's Tracy Geary. I live at 625 West Johnson. And I want some clarification. So in this area, there's homes and manufactured homes. If I owned a home in an area that you're going to make a mobile home area, my value just decreased by how much? Therefore, your tax dollars also decreased by how much? If that's the case, then what, could that not be broken up into where there is homes and mobile homes? Also, I heard in the conversation that Aransas wanted to do away with RVs as living spaces. If that's the case and you make this a mobile home, then you've just opened that back up where you can now have RVs in there, if I'm not mistaken. So that's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Roy Vasquez, 1003 West Rhodes Avenue. Just wanted to share that I've spoken with many residents, potential residents in this town, and I've been asked, where can I put my mobile home, my manufactured home? We have very little manufactured home areas that are not full. Off the top of my head, we got Roadrunner off of South Saunders, Portobello, and a couple other ones. We don't have very much manufactured home areas. We need them. And this is a perfect example of expanding that, manufactured home areas. And so I just want to add that I'm for this.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Members of the council have any other questions?
No.
If not, then I declare this particular public hearing closed.
What's the favor of the council, item 8.8?
Make a motion, we approve item 8.8.
Second the motion.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Next item is, excuse me, item 9, public hearing on the following plats. Did you have something?
Mayor, Council, next item that talks about the public hearing on plats. I was being overzealous and scheduled it for this council meeting, but it's actually advertised for your next council meeting, so no action will be required since it wasn't properly advertised, but it's advertised for your next meeting.
On 8.9, sir?
On the 18th of July.
So which ones are all these? The
Sorry?
public hearing?
9 and 10.
9 and 10?
9 and 10.
We'll just pass on those. Next item is item 8, excuse me, 11, public hearing on conditional use permit for Kevin and Samantha Simone to operate a bar, lounge, or tavern at 208 East Wheeler Avenue. This was tabled at the last meeting and needs to be untabled.
I make a motion, we untable this item.
I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I declare a public hearing open on this particular item.
Mayor, Council, the item you have, as stated earlier, this was tabled at your last council meeting. The question was brought up by the applicant as to whether or not they would have to pave the required parking area. Staff and Planning Commission had both reviewed and discussed this requirement, and the Plan and Zoning Commission unanimously recommended the conditions that are set before you, which would require the all required parking to be on all weathered surface, which would be concrete or asphalt. There is no specific requirement in the ordinance that all parking lots be paved. This is a requirement that Planning Commission has furthered on to the City Council for their approval.
I'm getting to the conditions.
And so that is the the requirement of the city. This is also one of the entrances into the harbor that we as the city have indicated we want to improve along with the other two entrances to the harbor. And by requiring them to comply with the requirement of pavement, then at that time we can also start improving the area to look better as it goes in to the harbor. Again, as stated, the Planning Commission on April the 11th recommended unanimously for the approval of the conditional use permit subject to the 7 conditions, which one of them, or 8 conditions really, one of them being the 12-month time limit and the other one pavement of the parking. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is either Kevin or Samantha Simone here? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Samantha Simon. I live at 719 Lantana Street, Corpus Christi, Texas. Our concerns with the parking lot, in the past month we've had time to research. All weather material is defined under Texas code is crushed stone, crushed shell, asphalt, concrete, or other previous or imprevious materials that can anticipate the weight of a vehicle. That being said, I've contacted 5 different paving companies, and crushed shell has the ability to hold up to 2,000 pounds per square inch, as well as absorb up to 20% of the waterfall that comes with rain. And without the proper drainage system there, without the proper drainage system there, it's gonna, by putting in a paved parking lot, that 20%, 15% of that 20% is now gonna go into your roads. And North Arch isn't a paved road. That's gonna cause damage to that road, along with other properties on that road.
And currently in the same area, there's no drainage on the side of the bar. There's drainage across the street, but it has to make it across the street to drain.
And we ask that you approve the permit for 2 to 3 years to allow us to open. A bank won't give us a loan until the business has been established for 2 years in order for us to help in putting in the proper drainage there and paving the parking lot so that it doesn't cause damage to y'all's roads plus our neighbor properties.
So we want to come in, and once we can get approved by the bank within 2 years or so, come in for proper drainage inside the actual parking lot area, and then running into of course, the city's sewer system, And that's what we're asking for, at least 3 years for additional use permit, and at the end of 3 years, we will have it paid. And if not, you'll have no use but to, shut us down, of course, but.
Any questions of the council?
No.
Mr. Saldana, as I understand it, the P&Z is recommending, and what they approved was for a paved lot, parking lot. Sorry?
Paved lot 1 year.
Yeah.
Concrete
Any
or
questions about
asphalt?
council?
But the lot has to be paved within a year of opening?
Well, they're recommending a
Prior
1 year
to.
conditional use permit
Okay.
with the requirement that the parking area be paved, as I understand it.
The Planning Commission did recommend the paving, which is specifically stated in the conditions, either concrete or asphalt.
But then the line after that, says that, where is it at? All required parking must be on all weather surface, concrete or asphalt. The existing parking area is made of crushed shell. Staff is recommending the required parking of an all weather surface. The line right after it.
Yeah, but the conditions that the Planning Commission approved, which are up there on the screen,
We have that too.
says all required parking must be on an all-weather surface, concrete or asphalt. Parking lot striping must comply with city standards and maintained at all times. That is the requirement that the
The
planning.
car has been here for 20-something plus years, and now all of a sudden the city is requiring it to be paved. We have met the city halfway, at least not even mostly, probably 95% of the way. We built the fence in the back that they asked us to put in, and then the structure for the garbage. to be put in, the trash can to be hidden. I have built that and put it in. We've met y'all 95% of the way. All we're asking is the time to go ahead and let us open up, get the business running, and then we're gonna say, okay, in 2 years, so even if you approve it for 2 years, we'll be happy with 2 years, but you wanna do that. But in the 2 years, we'll have it paid. That's all we're asking. We wanna make this place, beautiful. We wanna make it look better, of course.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else present who is either in favor or in opposition to the application? Yes, sir.
My name is Al Guzman. I live at 1124 South Commercial, and I own the property that is in question. I recently went and seen Mr. Miguel on the condition and tried to explain to him what we were dealing with, and came out very negative. I own 24 feet from my building to the easement area. From that area to the street is 37 feet. Now, my question to him was, who is going to pave that 37 feet? His answer was, well, you can buy, we'll sell you the property, and then you can pave it. I don't know if that's legal or not, sir. Is that legal to sell the easement area? I don't know if anyone owns an easement area. That place has been there for 70 years. I've owned it for probably 45 years. I recently came back. I'm a U.S. Marine Corps retiree. I came back home, and this has been a mess. We have rented it out several times, and because of the situations, the licenses were pulled. So, but we've never had to go through what we're going through right now. There's nothing wrong with the driveway. It has been paved twice. When I say paved, it was done with recycled asphalt. What's the address? And there is a drainage. There is a drain at the end, and the water does drain that way. So there's no problem there. We've never had a problem. We've never had a problem with cars getting stuck, or I think the whole situation is being blown out of proportion. I told one of the members here that if they paved the street, that I would pave my part of the driveway, and I intend to do that. If they pave the street, and I thank you, council members, for doing that, paving the street in front of that 11, in front of Wheeler, and I am willing to pay for the part that is mine, 24 feet from my building. But I'm not going to pay 37 feet that goes out to the easement area. No one owns the easement area. Why do I have to pay to have the easement area paved? Because a bunch of people and the board members got together and said, well, I think it's a good idea. So I'm asking the board here to think about it and reconsider the action. And I want to fall back on something that we always talked about in the Marine Corps, was that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why are we going to spend all this money? It's going to cost $10,000 to pave that driveway.
All right.
How much?
$30,000 plus the drainage.
$30,000. And for what? What are we going to gain out of it?
All right, thank you, sir.
Sir.
Anyone else? Daniel?
I noticed that it's the conditional use permit is for 1 year, and as far back as I can remember, the conditional use permits were 2 years. I don't know when that changed.
Long time ago.
Changed a long time ago?
Yeah.
Well, I think they should consider 2 years, because if you're having to spend that kind of money just to open up a business, it's kind of ridiculous. That's really not feasible to do it within 1 year's time. And the regulations that they're putting on the business owners are tremendous. It used to be you could just open up and go back in business, but you can't do that no more. You got all kinds of different rules and regulations. maybe I shouldn't mention that, but he hasn't been forced to put trees in front of his yard or in front of his business like everybody else has. I think 2 years is a good amount of time.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? If not, then I declare this particular hearing closed.
So that brings us to item 812. What's the favor of the council for item 812? Alan, could we give them a 2-year conditional use?
Sure.
Do I hear a motion for a 2-year conditional use?
With all of the other conditions?
Yeah, all the rest of the conditions. What's the favor of the council? Do they approve or don't approve?
Well, I'll make a motion, we approve the conditional use permit for 2 years with all the conditions set forth.
Second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I abstain.
One abstain.
So the all-weather surface as, the conditions as stated, which means the all-weather surface must be installed prior to.
Well, they got 2 years to
No,
install it.
that's not how the conditions read. The conditions read the all-weather surface must be installed prior to,
Before they open.
before they open.
Then what's the 2-year?
For them to be in business.
For them to be in business, the way it was written was a 12-month conditional use permit where Planning Commission would reassess the permit as to whether or not allowing them to continue operation.
I was misunderstood, because I thought we were giving 2 years to put their parking lot.
No.
Okay.
No, that was 2 years before they have to come back, and if everything is copacetic, they continue on.
Good.
Yeah, we've never done that.
Sorry.
like that.
Alan, what's your advice on that?
That's up to y'all, Mayor. If you want to amend your motion to change that, you certainly can do that. Would seem to me.
I would favor amending it. It's up to the council.
Favor an amendment for 2 years to get the permit done.
I would recommend you, discuss it and come back on the next council.
Just table it.
Well, we've
Well, you've
already
already
made a
voted.
motion. You've already made a motion already on that.
You've already voted, so you have to
You have to move on.
resurrect it, yeah.
So we hear a motion to resurrect it.
I'll make
Somebody has to make a motion if that's so desired.
I'll make a
Yep.
motion, we resurrect this motion.
You would need to amend condition
amend.
number 7.
To amend the motion.
Okay, to amend the motion, 8-7.
You need to, that's the part that you guys got stuck on, that they need to do it before. So,
Just get together the 2 years to put it together. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, you need to really think about what you're gonna say, okay?
yeah, I am.
You're gonna have to go back to it again.
I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that, because it sounded like you were confused. I didn't want him to walk out thinking he's got a permit, but then condition number 7 is still there. You have to open up the public hearing.
Just a minute.
So, let's open the hearing. What do you got?
Well, Alan needs to open the public hearing.
Well, you've already had the public hearing. It's just a matter of question is whether you want to amend your motion or not. To give them a 2-year conditional permit with one of the stipulations being that they have within that 2 years to install a paved or concrete driveway. Right.
Meanwhile, PD's cringing in the background. Sir, Mayor, the public hearing is closed. It's time for a vote. The public hearing is closed.
Well, I make a motion that we give them the terms. They get 2 years conditional use permit, and in those 2 years, the compliance part, they have to, after the 2 years, they have to have that thing paved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Wait, Philip made the vote. Who seconded it?
Billy.
Billy.
Okay.
And you still abstain, Vicky?
No, I said aye.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
All right, the next item is public hearing on demolition of buildings.
Mr. Wells.
Let's kind of do these like we did the last time. Let's start with item 1, which is 653 West Matlock, being lot 30, block 350.
I'd like to table this item until next meeting. We have recently found another owner of the property that wasn't originally noticed, and that person, until they have proper notice, hasn't had the opportunity to respond back to us. I think it's a new owner or someone that
A new heir.
An heir or someone that has.
Just item number 1.
Just item number 1.
Okay.
So we can scratch that.
Well, let's go to 2 then, 405 North 12th. Lot 7 and 8, block 208.
This property has a structure on it that is substandard. It's primarily a garage structure. Originally, the house was removed by the city, and the house was demolished, and I don't have any idea why they didn't demolish the garage at that time, but obviously the building is substandard condition and it's open, and it actually leans to the side, so very little would create a situation where it could collapse.
Have you received any responses to your notice?
I have not received any responses to the notice whatsoever.
And you're confident that the notices were sent out and were received by the owner?
They were sent out to the addresses that we had, and the notices were returned unanswered.
Okay.
We have made every attempt to find a current owner to it, and we have not been able to.
All right, item 3, 959 South.
We have.
You found the owner?
Let me back up. You said it's not your property.
So it's under his name, but not his property.
It's under his name, but we've contacted the bank, and they say that they don't want the property, so it's kind of a situation where all parties have been notified.
The bank doesn't want it, and Daniel doesn't want it.
And
I said the bank doesn't want it, and Daniel doesn't want it.
Daniel doesn't want it.
Okay.
So we have contacted the bank, discussed it with them, and until taxes, liens, everything are paid, they don't want the property, so it's kind of in between the two.
Okay.
And I don't know what the legal process is with that.
We can't tear it down though, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, we
good.
could legally tear it down.
All right, item 3 is 959 South Whitney, being lot 8, block 424.
Okay, this property has been inspected. We've sent notifications, done a title search. The building is open, ceilings are falling down inside. It's full of mold, just really in bad condition. It's open to the public, so my recommendation is to have it removed.
No responses?
We have not received any response from anyone on the property.
All right. Item 4 is 545 South 13th, being lot 6, block 748.
If this building has part of the property, one side of the building has a makeshift lean-to shed on it that has collapsed and is causing the exterior wall of the house to actually collapse, and it's rotted away severely. It's one I wouldn't even consider attempting to go inside myself. It's very, very bad condition. It's a very dilapidated building. It should be torn down.
No responses?
We have sent notifications, and we have not received any response back on the property.
Okay.
I know she's passed away. I know she's passed away.
Do you know if she has any heirs that may?
I don't know that, but she has
We have
passed
not
away.
found any, and we've sent notices.
She had a nephew, I think.
A nephew or grandson that works for the city. Seems
I-
picking up now.
I don't know if he works for the city, I don't know. But,
I've seen, from what I've seen, I think he works for the city. I
Who?
just can't think of his name.
He picks up the mail, he's an heir.
Oh.
But I don't.
Would he have any interest in the property? If we could get that name, we could send re-notification to someone. We have not had any success in finding
I
any.
just met him a couple of times as a neighbor down the street.
Let's pass on that one, and would you check on that?
Okay, if you could get me the name of the person, then we.
Like I said, I don't know his name. I know so many people by wave and hand, what's up?
Is he around here?
I think he works for the city of Rathpas. He's a young man, drives an 883 Sportster. That helps out. I know the motorcycle, I don't know the guy.
Got me a license plate number, we can search him out. We'll set that to the side and make an attempt.
The neighbors will thank us for tabling that item.
I'm one of the neighbors, believe me, I know.
Mhm.
All right, well, item 5 is 1126 North McCampbell, lot 1, block 212.
Hey, this property has a structure on it that is open and vacant. Doors are broken out, windows are broken out. Roof on the porch is partially collapsed. It appears that at times people have been coming to the property, I think vagrants. We see chairs and soda cans and such as that around the property. We have made every attempt to contact the owners and have received no response back from anyone.
Okay. Item 6, 336 North 11th, lot 13, block 209.
Excuse me. Did I? Okay, item number 6.
Yeah, 336 North 11th.
336 North 11th was the one I just mentioned. Had deteriorated, had the people living in it. And we've made every attempt to notify everyone.
It does have people living in it?
Hmm?
Oh,
they just like to
sorry.
hang out there. That's
Oh,
their
they like to
clubhouse.
hang out there, gotcha.
People like to hang out there. It's been a.
Oh, I see the
situation
chairs,
for-
sorry.
You can see the chairs sitting there, and then you can see the area is open, completely open.
Okay.
Oh, shooting gallery.
Well, that's all, I think, is it not?
Yes.
Is there anyone present who has any interest in any of these properties? All right, so thank you. With that, I declare the public hearing closed. I would recommend that you act to instruct that the city proceed with demolition of items 2, 3, 5, and 6.
Well, I make a motion that we proceed with the demolition of the stated properties, except for number 4.
No,
Well, and 1.
2, 3,
1 and
5,
4?
6.
Okay.
I second the motion.
All
Why
fair say aye.
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 Vicky and,
Oh, that's one that, okay.
Sylvia, item 9.
Mayor and Council, this is a advertisement. I am seeking the use of hot funds for the 2016-2017 year to go to national site selectors in order to market Con Brown Harbor and some of our other commercial corridors. It would be a two-phased approach. One is in the early fall guide, and then one is in the late spring guide. Both are geared toward shovel-ready sites and or tourism related sites, so these would go national. It would be an encumbrance against the hot fund of $22,450.
There's plenty of money in the hot fund at this time.
This is going to be in the next fiscal, so
Okay.
we would be encumbering money.
Okay.
How long would these ads run?
Their monthly ads. The August, September ad actually goes to a trade show that features, believe it or not, Kentucky is second to the state of Texas in economic development. They're converting all of their mines and things. So it would go to Kentucky, Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and the super southern states right now that are having prime economic development. So that's the, and then also to all of their subscribers. So it's going to go digitally to everybody who subscribes, all of the businesses, and then it will also go to the trade show. So the expected reach is over 15,000 reach over the two advertising sectors.
So the amounts shown here are per month?
Yes, there is a $6,000, which is the September issue, and then the May issue, and then there's also a $10,400, which is a goes into CCREDC, the Regional Economic Development Guide. That lists all of San Patricio, Nueces, all of our region businesses. That also gets submitted to trade shows within the area. So it's actually 3 publications.
I do advertise right now, Sylvia, for property the city has.
We don't.
I mean,
We rely on the chamber.
Chamber.
We rely on the chamber on, for the most part, for marketing. This is a more geared, more professional publication that's going to go out to a very select target audience. We don't go to conferences. We don't go market. You know, some other cities attend the national conferences. We don't do that. Rosemary has a very limited budget, so she only goes to, I believe, 2 in the year.
This publication actually goes out to developers all
Yes.
across the nation. Okay.
Yes.
So right now, we haven't really put the harbor out, right? Since the
No,
last-
no, we have not. I think it fits well with their publication that's called Shovel Ready Sites, because it basically is shovel ready.
Well, I make a motion that we approve the, purchasing the advertisement from the Site Selector magazine.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Seems a little expensive.
What we can get out of it.
The next,
Hopefully we'll sell it.
No, we don't want to sell it.
But lease it or whatever.
Yeah, don't sell the harbor.
It won't be sold, has to be leased.
What's the next item?
the next item is really aligning our mobile food unit and roadside food vendor section of the food establishment ordinance to align with San Patricio County. They have already amended their code, and we need to amend ours to match. It really is just housekeeping and cleanup. It requires an education requirement that now folks can go online to obtain their food handlers. And the counties and the cities would honor. It adds some language for food managers, and then there's an inspection form that has to be made up, and then the cleanup is cleaning up Chapter 228 to reference the correct chapter. That should be 229, not 299.
God bless you. Is there a motion for approval item 9.2?
Yeah, make a motion, we approve item 9.2.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 The next item is change order number 1 to the skate park. When we originally planned the skate park, we planned the slab only, anticipating there would be a small green space folks could walk through to get to the skate ramps. This is the addition of an apron, basically a concrete apron that would create a transition from the parking lot to the skate park, all in an all concrete surface.
Do you have like a drawing or rendering or what it would look like?
No, not in this packet, no.
Well, I will make a motion that we approve the change order number 1 for the community park improvement.
Second?
I got a question. That's not including the netting or anything?
No, the net, because we're still trying to figure out what the cost would be, the net's probably going to go out for bid. And where Eli is writing the specifications for the fencing, and so that's going to be, since we're doing fencing and it is sort of a fence, I think we're just going to do all of that in that new bid.
This is just a walkway though?
This is just the apron connecting the asphalt to the actual skate
The
skate
full-
structure.
Full width or how big?
Well, it's got to be at least 36 to meet ADA. I don't have the drawing in front of me.
I was just curious what it's going to look like. All in favor?
The actual installation of the equipment has been paid for in the purchase of the
Right.
equipment itself. So we're trying to schedule a date after the concrete is cured a certain number of time to do actual installation.
I was just curious if it was a walkway or like a.
It will not be the width of the entire
That's what
skate
I
park. It's just a transition space. It's got to be at least 36 to make it ADA.
We got a second on that. All in favor, say
That's
aye.
if they need a
Aye.
turnaround. It's only- I'm sorry I missed that vote.
Everybody.
Billy.
The next item is consider an act on emergency repairs with J.J. Fox Construction. These are during the last rain events that we've either had collapses or infiltrations that are so great that we need to take care of them, or overflows of sewer or other, as the case may be, by Pepitos. And that's a dead end on North Houston Street. That repair, because it was imminent, we had to repair. That was $26,100. There's a manhole at Greenwood and Rife that has pretty severe breaks and infiltration also. That one is $22,500. And then there's a relatively large break at Guile and North Commercial. That is the one by Pepitos where there is just, it's horrible, the grease and everything that's been there over the years. That is pretty substantial work. That is $41,000 worth of work. So that work is going to total $89,600.
And it's just for those 3 projects?
It is just for those 3 projects.
Because, yeah, there's another one over there by the post office.
There is, they're all over. They are all over the city. We're actually talking to a company. There is a cover that you'll see right as you walk into the city. Our manholes are made of clay and brick lined, and they have the old, very heavy steel covers on them. You get infiltration, the lines break, the clay breaks, and so it may not be coming in from the top, but it's coming in from the side, and it just continues to wash out, wash out. So we are talking to a company that has new technology that would just replace the manhole, and it's a very heavy duty sort of plastic, flush with the ground. It can carry a lot more weight than some of the clay. But in advance of that, that's also going to be one of our topics at the retreat. In advance of that is televising. Which ones do we prioritize? Which ones are first? I know sometimes it looks like, well, we need to get to that one. But there might be one that's, you can barely see it, but it's got a huge possibility of some cave-ins in the area. And this is all over town. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and we'll talk about it in depth at the retreat.
So this is work to be done or has already been?
One of them has already been, actually two. North Houston and Greenwood have already been completed. This does not include the paving cost. That's our cost that the city is going to be doing. Guile and North Commercial, that one's a little bit because it's deep and it requires some trench safety.
So this is the same company we're using for North
13th
13th Street?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
He has no need to go over the Harbor Bridge anymore. We have plenty of work here for years.
Okay, well, I make a motion that we approve the emergency infrastructure repairs with J.J. Fox totaling $89,600.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Hi, the next item is a headache. It is FM 2725. There were apparently some existing connections that were not carried over. They weren't identified on the original plans, and nobody says anything until they say, hey, my neighbor's on water, how come I'm not? Hopefully this is the last that puts this darn project to bed. It is a change order in the amount of $46,260 to Bridges Specialties.
We've got to talk to everybody, make sure everybody's in line, or
People are funny. They don't. It's almost like they enjoy us watching us be finished before they say, "Hey, what about me?" Yeah. And yeah, this would allow us to finally abandon that old line.
I'll make a motion, we approve change order number 2 for FM 2725 water line project.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
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 All right. So now I'll turn it up to Pierce. Yeah.
I thought there was, which part of the agenda are we at?
We are on debris removal.
Mayor and council,
I
this
thought
is,
there was a 9B for update on the council retreat.
Oh, did I miss
thought
that?
we missed something there.
Sorry, there was no insert. I just jumped into the next. Mayor and council, it's okay, Pierce, just 2 seconds. I had previously requested 2 dates from you guys, this past Saturday and next Saturday for a retreat. Got a consensus, sort of didn't get a consensus, and then some of you guys were out of town. I'd really like to hold that this coming Saturday. We do need to notice it is open to the public, although there will be no citizen comment section of it. I want to go through the street survey. I want to go through the rehabilitation. I want to go through the stormwater plan, and as we commence into the budget process, what the new charter amendment is going to mean to that. And we really have to begin looking at things in a 3- and 5-year perspective. Our bond rating continues to improve. At some point, we may need to have the discussion about the tax rate. Roll back, roll forward, what is the actual plan, and I really need council's input. As a staff person and the public works guy seeing it face to face, I would love to have the money to do it all at one time, but we got to eat the elephant one bite at a time. So I'm asking for Saturday the 16th, and I promise not to take your entire day. I'd at least like a half day. I think we could cover it in 4 hours. Or an alternate date that the council would like to select. I would remind you that we have to set the tax rate in very early August, so sometime in the July timeframe or the early August timeframe.
This Saturday will work for me.
I'm good with Saturday.
As long as it can't be more than a couple hours, you know, like you said 4.
Mhm.
I got to get someone to cover it for
What
me.
time would you guys like to start the?
Morning would be fine.
So 8 to 12.
Mhm.
If we could be done by noon. Okay.
We can start early so Philip can go to work.
Well, I can start at 7 if you want to start at 7.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, we can start at 7 and be done by 11.
I got that baby now.
I mean, it doesn't. I just got to get someone to cover it for me. And that's it.
You can start at 6.
I just get
I'm up.
Whatever I discuss, I won't be there.
Okay. We can conference you in, or when we need comments.
Probably won't be here.
Well, but will you
won't
be
be
available?
online or-
Text or online?
No.
Okay.
It's going to be fall off the face of the earth, right?
I'm gonna try.
I'm going to try.
Okay, 7 to 11, Saturday the 16th.
Sylvia, you're calling this a retreat, but it's really a workshop.
It's a
isn't it?
council workshop. We
Okay.
will have to post, and it will be.
That's why I'm asking.
Yes.
Okay.
I would love a retreat, but it still has to be open to the
Well,
public, so.
It sounds great, but
It is a workshop.
We can pretend. We'll just wear our
There you
flower
go.
shirts and straw hats and all that.
Just making sure.
So Mary, we need to get that posting. Okay.
That's at 7 to 11.
All right, Pierce. Sorry.
Mayor, Council, what you have before you is a renewal for our cooperative purchasing agreement with DRC Debris Removal Company in the event of a major catastrophe that goes beyond what we are able to clean up. They'll be on standby and come in and help us. And the reason we're doing a cooperative purchase agreement is because the RFP for this is very lengthy, very detailed. Goes all the way down to the size of the tree laying in the street. CAT is working on that, and I believe in the next couple of meetings, y'all will have our request for an RFP to go out. But we've been very happy with DRC. The representative is here tonight. He's been very responsive to our needs, contacts me often, and I would request that y'all renew this again this year.
Well, I make a motion that we renew the agreement with DRC Emergency Services.
Second.
On the first, say aye.
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 Thank you. Ticket writers. You wanna handle that, Ms. Perkins?
David Alfalter and Assistant Chief Perkins. I would like to give you an update on Chief Blanchard, and I know he would kill me if I shared the video that I have in my possession of him on some pretty serious narcotics. He did hurt his
show it
back.
to us.
He did hurt his back coming back from vacation, so at this point it does not look like it's going to be surgery, but he is in pretty severe pain, and they are looking at a course of treatment, so he may be out the rest of the week. So I swore my firstborn I would not share the video, but if you want to come up to me afterwards, I'd love to share it individually with you. It's pretty funny.
He's going to declassify it.
It's pretty funny.
He's a funny
Council,
guy.
Mayor.
Yes, sir.
We're asking that we have some antiquated ticket writers, and we like to update it with Tyler Technology. We've been doing business with them, and what we're just wanting to do is upgrade to a better system. It's going to include the 5-year warranty. It's going to be 8 ticket writers, along with the accessories that go with it. The money will be coming out of the federal drug funds. And if you have any questions on this, I'll try to answer them, but I've also got David Alfalter here to try to answer those questions also.
Does every one of our officers have a ticket writer?
No, sir, not at this time.
How many do we have, kind of?
Right now, we've got 6.
Okay. So this would just kind of replace them?
It's going to replace those and add 2 more.
Add 2.
Oh, okay.
All our residents don't want us to approve this. Right? I'm just kidding.
That sounds good.
I like the fact that it's federal drug money.
There's no questions, make a motion.
Well, I make a motion that we
Thank you.
authorize the purchase of 8 new ticket writers.
Second. No, go ahead.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. I hope I never get to see one in use.
I would like to remind the council as well, we have several RFPs that are going to be going out. Fence, health insurance, trash. There's four. The fourth one escapes me right now. But so watch the newspapers. I know people say we never see it. Our new city website has postings, and as well, I'll remind folks that the official paper is the Herald, so that is where they're going to see bids published.
That brings us to item 16, adjournment of the meeting.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Wanna get a second? Sure.
Oh.
All right.